The steppe wind was merciless, cold, and eternal. Under its howl, spies trembled before the wrath of the Mongol Empire. Betrayal was not a mere act. It was an abomination that defied the very order of the heavens. For the Mongols, deceit was wrought in the bones of the world, and only through suffering could it be cleansed. Tonight, you will walk into the fires of Mongol justice, where punishment was not about death, but about the soul's disintegration. Before we begin, remember to like, subscribe, and stay till the end, because this is a story the earth itself remembers. The Mongol Empire was built on loyalty, discipline, and fear. Within its vast reach, from China's borders to the plains of Hungary, spies moved like shadows. But shadows, when caught by the Mongols, never lived long. Those accused of espionage faced punishments so dreadful that even hardened warriors shuddered to witness them. The Mongols did not simply execute spies, they erased them from existence. Each punishment was both judgment and message, etched into the minds of allies and enemies alike. They called it justice. History calls it terror. Imagine being dragged into a Mongol camp. The night burns with torchlight. Horses stamp in the dust. A semicircle of warriors watches in silence. You, accused of betrayal, are stripped and bound. The Khan's guards say nothing. Their eyes are colder than steel. No trial awaits, only ritual. The executioners know their duty. To betray the Mongols was to betray the order of the eternal blue sky. And under that sky, mercy had no place. The Mongols believed that blood carried power and corruption. Killing a spy by spilling blood was forbidden, for it would desecrate the ground. So, they devised deaths without blood. Some were suffocated in felt sacks, their cries swallowed by cloth and darkness. Others were crushed beneath heavy carts or smothered beneath wet hides. The punishment was silent, methodical, and sacred. The spies did not scream long, but their silence echoed for miles. Chroniclers from Persia and China described methods of unimaginable cruelty. One account tells of spies wrapped in freshly cut camel skins, bound tight as the hides shrank in the sun, crushing bone and organ alike. The Mongols watched in calm silence. To them, this was not vengeance, it was purification. Betrayal was a disease, and pain was the cure. Every crack of bone, every gasp, was a prayer to restore cosmic order. Others met fates worse still. Some spies were buried alive, their heads left above the ground, so the steppe wolves could finish what the Mongols began. In the biting cold, frost crept up their necks, stealing breath by breath. To be left alive among the dead was the Mongol definition of justice. They believed the traitor's soul needed to linger, to learn suffering before release. It was punishment both of body and spirit. In one story from the secret history of the Mongols, a traitor who sold military routes to an enemy general was sewn into the belly of a dead horse. The carcass was left to rot under the sun, the man suffocating within the stench and heat. It was said the Mongols did this to symbolize betrayal being devoured by its own corruption. Whether myth or truth, it reflects a society that turned pain into parable. To understand the Mongols, we must understand their leader. Genghis Khan, once betrayed by blood relatives and allies, learned early that deceit destroyed nations faster than war. His laws, the Yasa, made treachery the gravest sin. No act of espionage could be forgiven. Even whispers of betrayal demanded proof of loyalty through suffering. Those who failed the test met the fate of dust and silence. For the Mongols, punishment was not about cruelty, it was order. They saw justice as a cosmic balance. To betray was to tilt the world toward chaos. To restore it, one had to suffer in equal measure. This belief birthed punishments of shocking precision. Every act had symbolism. Suffocation meant silencing lies. Crushed bones meant broken oaths. Even death became ritual. In captured cities, spies were displayed as living warnings. Mongol commanders often paraded them before conquered crowds, tied, humiliated, sometimes half dead. Their execution followed days later, when fear had ripened in every heart. The Mongols didn't just kill one man, they killed resistance. Their justice was theater, designed to rule not through swords, but through dread. Some spies were not executed immediately. Instead, they were made examples of over time. Reports tell of spies used as forced servants, branded with hot iron, their skin carrying the mark of treachery. They lived only to serve until their bodies broke. The Mongols believed prolonged shame destroyed a man's spirit more deeply than death. A slow death of dignity was the cruelest punishment of all. And yet, the Mongols were masters of espionage themselves. Their empire relied on spies, scouts, and informants to move armies efficiently. But even their own agents knew the price of failure. If caught lying or withholding information, they faced the same fate as enemy spies. Loyalty was absolute. To deceive the Khan was to forfeit existence. The Mongol justice system was paradoxical, brutal, yet ordered. No punishment occurred without authority. Soldiers could not act from anger. Executioners followed rules like priests following rites. To them, cruelty without structure was dishonor. This discipline turned their violence into legend. It terrified the world precisely because it was controlled. A captured Persian spy once wrote in his final confession, "They killed not in rage, but in silence. Their eyes were empty of hate. That frightened me more than pain." Those words reveal a deeper truth. The Mongols' punishment wasn't emotional, it was mathematical. Betrayal had a cost, and they always balanced the account. In some Mongol courts, spies were forced to confess under psychological torment rather than physical pain. They were made to stand alone in the freezing wind for hours while the tribe ignored them entirely. No food, no speech, no gaze. In Mongol culture, to be unseen was a death worse than any blade. Isolation was obliteration of identity. Foreign diplomats lived in constant fear. The Mongols respected envoys, but if a messenger was caught passing secrets to rivals, his punishment became political theater. Once, a Chinese envoy found guilty of espionage was stripped, his documents burned before him, and then trampled beneath horses. His ashes were sent back to his emperor, a wordless declaration of Mongol justice. But not all who suffered were guilty. Rumors of betrayal often spread in wartime. Sometimes, innocent men perished in the name of example. Yet even that served the empire's logic. Fear was currency, and Mongols spent it lavishly. They knew terror controlled men more efficiently than trust. 1,000 loyal subjects could be ruled by the corpse of one spy. Their punishments weren't only physical, they were spiritual. Mongol shamans performed rites before executions, invoking Tungri, the eternal sky god, to cleanse the tribe of deceit. Drums pounded, incense burned, and the condemned wept as prayers rose to the heavens. In their final moments, spies faced not hatred, but a terrifying calm, the stillness of divine judgment. Over time, stories of these punishments spread beyond the empire's borders. In Europe and the Middle East, the Mongols became legends of fear. Their name alone sent chills through kings and courts. Spies who once crossed borders freely now hesitated. The world learned that Mongol justice was not to be tested. Fear, once planted, ruled empires more surely than armies. Historians argue whether the Mongols' brutality was necessary or excessive, but their results are undeniable. Their empire became the largest contiguous realm in history, and it was built not just on conquest, but on the psychological power of punishment. The mere thought of being caught by the Mongols made men obey without question. Fear became policy. For centuries after their decline, echoes of their punishments lived on. Other empires copied their methods, using terror as a weapon of control. From Ottoman execution rituals to Russian secret police, the philosophy of fear the Mongols mastered continued to shape history. Their cruelty had become a blueprint for authority. Today, we see their legacy not in blood, but in strategy. Their punishments were early lessons in psychological warfare, where victory was not on the battlefield, but in the mind. Every scream, every whispered story, ensured no one dared to spy again. The Mongols ruled hearts long after their swords grew silent. But beneath the horror lies an undeniable truth. The Mongols valued order above all else. To them, chaos was the ultimate enemy, and deceit its servant. Their punishments reflected a belief that pain purifies. They believed the soul must burn before it could be free of sin. Whether savage or spiritual, their justice was absolute. When you look into the history of the Mongols, you don't just see war, you see philosophy. They were architects of fear who understood that terror could unify more than love. They knew pain lingered longer than memory. Their punishments carved obedience into the bones of nations. The steppe itself seemed to echo their justice. The wind that swept across it carried stories of spies whose names were long forgotten, but whose suffering outlived empires. Every gust whispered reminders that under the eternal blue sky, loyalty was sacred and deceit unforgivable. Nature itself seemed to remember the Mongols' law. Even now, historians and travelers who visit Mongol lands speak of an unsettling stillness. The steppes are silent, endless, and vast, yet they hum with invisible weight, as if the cries of the condemned still hang in the air. The Mongols believed souls lingered in the wind. Perhaps that's why it never stops blowing. Their methods may seem barbaric, but to the Mongols, they were divine necessity. They did not see cruelty, they saw balance. To them, the world was an unbroken circle, and every lie demanded retribution to restore its symmetry. Their punishments were the hands that turned the circle back toward order. Among Mongol elders, there's a saying still whispered: the spy dies twice, once in body, once in memory. The second death was the worst, for no one spoke their names again. Erasure was final. It was as though the traitor had never been born. In their silence, the Mongols created eternal oblivion. And yet, through all this darkness, there is awe. The Mongols transformed terror into empire, discipline into immortality. Their punishments, though inhumane, reflected a terrifying genius. They understood human fear better than any ruler before or after. They didn't just command obedience, they engineered it. That is why their shadow still stretches across history. The Mongols punished spies with fates worse than death because they understood something eternal. Fear is immortal. It moves from generation to generation, whispering through time. Even now, the memory of their justice still chills the blood. If this journey through their dark empire has gripped you, subscribe, like, and join us next time, when history's shadows rise once more.